Lovely.
So we should say Happy Halloween, everyone!
Happy Halloween.
We welcome you to the spooky show. We've got all the ambient lighting. And we realize that sometimes you just have to get an anglerfish and a shark together.
See what happens.
For a nice live stream.
Not reef safe.
Not reef safe at all. Neither one of us, actually. And then we have a stingray, too.
I don't know if you could see it.
Not yet.
No. Maybe
She'll come visit later. She may even bark. So I am Mark, a.k.a. Milev, and this is Caitlin.
Hello, Caitlin.
So we are going to do some fun stuff. I can't wait to talk to you about scary reef stories.
Oh, no.
You know, I realize that you've got some scary stories. They're not literally reef, but I think we should tell them anyway.
Which one do we start with?
Expensive fish that don't make it?
Oh, yeah, that's always sad, having a loss when it's like, hey, that's like my SUV.
Right,
no.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the scariest things, I think, is losing fish or corals, just because it's so sad. And there's nothing worse than having a jumper or, finding fish jerky on your floor.
Yeah. Well, it's worse when they cost a fortune.
Yeah, well. Oh.
All right, so I'm going to paint a picture of a scary reef tank moment to start us off.
Okay.
So this was a long, long time ago, actually 10 years ago. And as I was walking out this door, my foot made a slipping sound on the tile.
Oh,
It was this weird slippery sound. And I thought, well, we've had some rain, so surely I've just gotten the carpet a little bit wet coming in. And then the next day, I went through that same spot, and my shoe made a big, huge, scary squeak sound.
Oh, no.
So I had to play the part of a human spider, walking backwards and feeling the surface of the carpet. And it was really wet under the corner of the aquarium. So I have a 280-gallon reef tank that relies on the fact that the box holds all the water inside. And it's dripping out.
Oh, no.
So that is probably the scariest reef story I can think of when you know you have all this livestock. It was 6 years old. It was beautiful. It was my best tank.
Right.
And there's water running drip, 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 just like a horror movie. And you're just standing there thinking, how do I stop this drip? So, yeah, that was really, really scary. And it ended up requiring... I tried some tricks that didn't work, like holding my finger on the glass.
What?
And then when you let go, you saw the water go further down the silicone seam, which is terrifying. And then I tried to build a box inside to create a negative space where I could have air and I could maybe put new silicone, but that tank was done. So
did you save everything?
Saved as much as I could.
Okay.
We pulled everything out of the aquarium and put it in temporary troughs, and that was the where we were at that point, is just keeping the livestock alive while we had to rip out the tank. So that was one scary story. So now I want you to paint the picture without names of what fish came home and how you filled out a form and then what actually died without throwing anyone under the bus.
I don't think it ended up dying.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
It did live?
No, it did.
Okay, all right. Because when you told me that was pretty scary.
I think the scariest moment, well, having a really valuable fish come home and having someone say, quick, set up a tank, it's on its way, that was pretty terrifying, knowing just how valuable the fish was. And I made up a contract and I said, I am not responsible if anything happens to the fish lived. So I did a good job, but I don't recommend that kind of setup for a fish. Any fish, doesn't matter if it's, $5 or $5,000, $15,000.
So this fish was $100?
Oh, it was up there. I'm not going to name prices either.
Let's just put it this way. It was an SUV. No, it was a very expensive fish. And, yeah, I'm glad it lived.
Yeah, so that actually, in the moment it was scary, but it wasn't.
All right.
I think scarier for me was having a sponge sucked into a sump pump and then having to take apart the whole thing and drain it and, realizing that
15 tanks were relying on that summer.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
That was just recently.
Yeah, that was a few weeks ago. So,
you were cleaning.
Yeah, I was cleaning
with a magic eraser.
I was,
and it magically
erased into the pump.
You get sucked right into the intake of the pump.
That's why I recommend, and I'm sure Mark does too, screens to block that sort of thing from happening, because we did have to shut down the whole system, take apart the plumbing, and
get access to
do Operation Rescue Sponge.
Right.
Because you really don't want that sort of thing, those things to dissolve, and then there's just like plastic in your tank. That's not good either.
Right, yeah, and I mean, that stuff is considered safe, but still having it chop up and spit out into all the aquariums isn't...
Also not pretty.
It might just clog the pump up bad.
Yeah. So, but, having those moments like that, keeping your cool and thinking like, okay, I mean, I had this moment, I'm not going to lie, where I said, maybe I'm just going to leave it and no one will notice, but that's a terrible idea. So, yeah, being able to kind of keep your calm during those situations is good.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about something else scary that happened yesterday.
Oh God.
We have a tarantula named Archie. And we really wanted to get Archie into this video today. We were trying to think of a way that we could maybe have it creep along the edge of the aquarium or be going up the glass would have been really cool.
I'm an embarrassed shark right now.
Her cheeks are so pink. And anyway, I'm at the computer, I think, or I was getting packages done. And Caitlin thought she could carefully hold the spider and kind of get a feel for how it operated on her hands, because we don't touch it. And
the stingray's here. Oh, she's gone.
And there.
Sorry.
Oh, she'll be back later. So the spider was no longer in her hands when she says, "Mark, grab Jack," which is the stingray. And I was trying to, but she was super alert to something's going on in the kitchen. And there was a tarantula going across the kitchen floor under the kitchen counter, right under the cabinet. This
story gets better, by the way.
So she was trying to, I think used a fishnet or something, trying to slow it from walking away. And by the time, and use the other hand to hold the dog back.
This all happened within like 2 seconds.
Yeah, it was very fast. And she's holding her hand up to keep the dog back. I'm trying to grab the dog. The spider goes straight up the little kickboard in front of the cabinet and finds this narrow little gap that actually puts it inside the cabinet, under the cabinet, where you could never get to it ever again. And at that point, we had no more spider, but it was somewhere in the house loose.
Oh, I thought, I'm never sleeping again. Oh, God.
It was great because it's her spider.
Yeah, and then having to break to you that, so the spider went into the cabinet and I can't get to it.
Yeah, you couldn't just open the doors and get to the spider. It was behind the kickboard, under the cabinet, which is a permanent structure. And when I tiled that kitchen a long time ago, I put the tile up to the kickboard, which is what you do. But to remove the kickboard, there's tile and grout in the way now. So the only solution was a hammer and a crowbar and just break the board. And then carefully, using a par meter sensor holder, remove said spider from under the cabinet and have it run to the front. And then she used fish nets and a shoebox and we trapped it. And then I went to the post office to go drop off my packages.
Yeah.
And you got it back in its habitat.
It really was just a creative way to get him to redo the cabinets.
Nothing's good enough anymore. No, she's kidding. No, that was funny because after the moment set in, we realized we got to the spider's a spot where you could not get it. Then the freak out moment happened for you. And you're like, where's my phone? Who am I going to call?
Who do you call?
And I'm thinking, I have to get things shipped. I don't have time for a spider hunt. And, what are we going to do? Just sleep with the door closed so that way it can't get us? So it's like, what are we going to do? So we got the spider.
She's okay, by the way. Back in her little habitat, very happy. We've decided.
She's best in there.
Yeah. And she maybe was a little spooked, but she's good. And she's eating. So if anyone's concerned about the spider, she's great.
All right. So I've got another scary reef story for you guys. This was many years ago again. This one's not my reef. there was a guy who had a huge, beautiful SPS reef, and he ran a double closed loop system where there's holes drilled in the bottom of the aquarium. I'm kind of against that just because I hate the idea of a Swiss cheese aquarium. I'm so terrified one of those things will leak. And one of those things was leaking on his tank. So he thought, well, how am I going to fix this? It's the bottom of the tank. There's 400, 500 gallons of water on top. And he thought, well, I could put on a scuba mask so I could see, because water's going to go everywhere. He says, well, I'm going to get soaking wet. So he took off all his clothes. And from that day forward, I call him Travis the Naked Reefer.
Wow.
He went under there completely naked and thought that he could fix this leaking bulkhead, which I think the plan was to remove and swap out rapidly, which now I'm thinking about, I don't know how he was going to do that, but somehow he actually did it. But the thing is, when the water came gushing down, which he knew it'd only be a minute or two, he had a shop vac ready. The water didn't just come down, it went sideways, and it shot into all the electrical, and it was like the 4th of July under his tank. So he's naked, getting doused in water, getting shot with sparks.
Wait, why did he have to take off all of his clothes?
That's what we all said.
Like,
He said, it's going to get wet, I might as well just be naked. So here's a naked guy with the goggles of a scuba mask in an electrical firestorm with water everywhere.
this story's scary for a lot of reasons.
Unbelievable. And he did get it fixed and was able to tell the story to us later. But that would be a terrifying moment trying to fix a bulkhead in the bottom of a full system. My solution would be move as much livestock out, drain the tank down, deal with the problem, reset it. You know, it would just be a long day. But his way was way more exciting. So that was a scary story. I would love to hear some of your reef scary stories. I know you each have one, if not more than one, because we all do silly things, and sometimes we make mistakes, and we can live to tell the tale.
Yeah.
So, the other topic, so, you know, I'll keep thinking. I'm sure I'll come up with a few more stories for you today. But the other topic that we want to talk about, I say we, because you had a piece in this, is that we want to talk about water parameters and why they're so important. And every week I tell you to test your water, but we haven't actually talked about all the water parameters, what they should be, and how you should maintain them, and how to keep the tank healthy, because you say water tests
Save lives.
save lives.
They do.
I love that. That should be a new hashtag. Water tests save lives. So it really is important that we test our water because we are trying to keep our fish and corals healthy and thriving, not just okay, not just alive. It should be more than that. You know, we take good care of all the other pets we have. We want to make sure they're super healthy. And so the things inside a glass or acrylic box filled with water should be super healthy too. And so we'll start with the top one. We're going to talk about temperature. The average reef temperature is highly debated with people like, I read this article. But the general rule of thumb is somewhere between 77 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you can find a spot in there and keep it at that point, that would be great. So let's say you keep your tank at 78.25 all the time, that's fantastic. But if your tank is going from 77 to 79, 78 to 80, and then coming back each day, that is totally fine. A tank can handle a 1 or 2 degree swing, which is why I'm so surprised the reefs in the ocean struggle so badly when they say there's been a 1 degree shift. You know, because you think about it,
Yeah.
temperature's up 1 degree, and I'm like, I do that every single day. My whole
Right.
livestock has been doing this for decades. So,
I think with the ocean, there's probably just a lot more variables.
well, there's that, and the other thing is that when they say a degree, they say Celsius. And
Right.
someone made a really good point. Oh, I remember it was a speaker at Mackinac. He made this point. He said, when you are in 98.6, you feel good. When you're 99 or 100, you're like, oh, I don't feel well. He says, that's a degree. And I was like, I finally get it. It makes sense to me. So we do want to make sure our tanks don't get too warm. The danger point for a tank, especially if it's spiked, something went wrong with the house and the room just got too hot, too cold, whatever. But let's just say heat. So the tank gets to 85, that's the danger point. Because once the tank hits 85, the oxygen level in the water drops and the fish can't get enough air. So it's really important. It's funny, they swim in water, but they need air. So we want to make sure our tank never gets above 85, no matter what. And if it does, you drop in an air stone with an air pump to put air into the tank immediately. so those fish can be okay while you're trying to cool the water down. And the simplest solution is grab a big bag of ice. You could put it inside another bag if you're worried about what's on the bag, and just drop it in the tank and let it start cooling the system. And you don't need that water in the bag, to melt and mix with your system. Just keep it in the bag. But that's a quick fix to drop a temperature in a tank. The next thing we care about is salinity. Salinity.
Oh, yes.
And we want to make sure that the salinity is correct. And that includes all the new livestock you keep buying. Because you find a coral, you find an invertebrate, you find a fish, and you love it. And they come from many different sources. So it's smart to check the salinity in the bag of whatever you just bought and just see where it's at. How far off is it from your tank? It could be very close. It could be a huge difference. If our tank is at 1.026 and the fish store is 1.019, that's a big jump for a fish. So we don't want to do a rapid acclimation in that case. We want to bring it up slowly over time, which means a small heater in their bucket, a drip, an oxygen pump, and basically you want to double or even triple the water volume of what was in the bag before you introduce it to your quarantine tank or your system. So keep that in mind. We want to make sure our salinity isn't a giant jump that can affect livestock. And then the tank itself, the salinity should be the same all the time. And the best way to maintain that perfectly is to have your tank set up with an auto top-off system to replace water that's evaporating. Because as the water evaporates, let's say you have a small tank. Let's say you have a 14-gallon cube of some kind, and this much water drains out. I'm putting near the lights and see my fingers.
It's a little dark today.
It's spooky. So you lose this much water, and if you were to check the salinity in your tank right now, you would discover it's higher. It's more salty because there's a lack of water. And you pour in RODI water, and the salinity will then come back down to the proper level. So if you can automate that to always have it go in several times a day to maintain the same water line in the tank at all times, your salinity will be stable. You'll be very happy. This pertains to tanks with or without a sump. You just want to maintain the same amount of water all the time. You don't want to lose 5% of your water, 10% of your water. I remember when I had my 29-gallon, before I ever had a sump, it might go down 2 or 3 inches, and I finally was like, well, let me pour in 5 gallons of, or whatever, 4 gallons of water in there, which I didn't at the time.
Of salt water?
Yeah, no, I was just pouring in water
right.
to raise the water level, and I knew you don't add salt water, but it was a big swing, and somehow my livestock survived in spite of me. But I didn't know at that time. And then later I automated it, and my life was so much better.
Right. So
I highly recommend some kind of automation to replenish your water. I sell some auto top-off kits on my website. You can check them out at MeliosReef.com. Now we're going to talk about water testing. So for a reef tank, we care about alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, phosphate, nitrate. Those are kind of the big 5. And there's all these other ones you can check with ICP testing.
Mm-hmm.
And some people want to measure iodine. Some people want to double check ammonia. I mean, there's nitrite. There's all those ones you use in the beginning when you're first cycling a tank. But for normal maintenance, those 5 tests are so important. And I actually sell all 5 of those test kits because I use them. The ones from Elos. And I recently got all 5 of the Salifert test kits as well. So if you're into either of those, you can do that. If you don't want either of those and you like to read a digital readout, the HANA checkers are very popular. A lot of people have them. And so you could use that to have a digital reading in case maybe you have a color blindness problem, which has been the main people said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I love it because I'm colorblind. I'm like,
right.
Okay, fair enough. So alkalinity, we want to find a number somewhere between 8 and 11 DKH. Whatever number you pick your tank is at, just keep it there all the time. So if your tank is at 9.5 and everything's doing well, don't change it lower. Just keep it at 9.5 by dosing alkalinity in your tank every single day. And a little small doser will do that for you. And if you don't want to buy one, you can pour it in yourself in an area of high flow. And you do this every single day at the exact same time, religiously. And your alkalinity will stay super stable and your corals will be really happy. When alkalinity drops, your corals go downhill really quickly, and it also brings your pH down. So it's good to keep that one where it needs to be. And the best way is through dosing. It's called 2-part dosing, where we dose alkaline and calcium. But because we also do magnesium, it's really 3-part dosing, but everyone refers to it as 2-part. And you can Google that, you can find videos on this channel about it, and you can learn a whole bunch in that area. What?
Nothing.
What?
I'm looking in the comments and there's a great story.
Oh! Well, read it.
Okay, so I woke up at 3 a.m. to my dog barking its head off at the top of my tank, turned on the light, and a raccoon had come through my roof and fell on my tank. Insulation got in the tank. and pee from the coon.
How do you know that
Oh
the
my
coon
God.
peed? How do you know that?
I'm sure it smells.
The
Come
ammonia
on.
level went up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He got his ammonia test kit.
That's one fancy way
Wow.
to get ammonia in your tank. But wow,
Man,
that's a great one.
that is a good one. Okay, I've got another reef horror story for you.
Okay.
So this is one you could not predict. The aquarium was upstairs, in the main living area, and then there was a basement in this house, and they had the sump down in the basement. Upstairs also was an adjoining room behind the reef tank, or somewhere nearby it, was the washer dryer. And where they were doing laundry, the bottle of Tide or whatever detergent they used
Oh.
flipped over, spilled down on the hardwood floors, went through all the cracks, and literally poured into the sump. And the sump was filled with foam end to end.
Oh my God.
How could you plan for that?
You can't. Well, don't put your tank anywhere near your washing machine.
Well, the sump was downstairs. You think it'd be completely isolated, but it was literally under the utility room. And so that's where you'd have to have a shield. So if there's a spill or something, it deflects and goes down the wall. So that was a crazy one that is very scary. At the moment, you think, now what do I do? My system is full of soap. Tide. I mean, I've heard of cleanup crews, but this is ridiculous. So, in his case, massive water changes, running carbon in a reactor was a solution. Definitely solving that problem where it can never, even if you had some kind of a ramp up high to deflect the fluids away or move the sump to a new spot that's never under a washer dryer again. But that was one of those ones like, how could that even happen?
Yeah, it's just one of those freak accidents.
Totally was.
I think the raccoon trumps it, but
yeah. Someone asked, where did you get that costume? Talking to me. What was that called? HalloweenCostumes.com or something like that?
Yeah, something very...
Very obvious, yeah. Yeah, we went looking and we were super excited. We saw it on a couple different websites where it was out of stock, and then we found one. So we ordered both of ours. Yeah. You're a lovely shark, by the way.
Thank you.
Her fin is there, but it's very low.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not anatomically correct.
Right. And you have some on your sleeves.
Yeah, I've got a little. And it's actually really comfy, so.
Yeah. You're just going to wear it all the time now.
Yeah. It's my new outfit.
I might just wear this all the time, too. All right. I want to talk about the next point was calcium. Calcium cannot be ignored, but the nice thing about calcium is it tends to stay there. So we want to be somewhere between 375 and 450. And again, this is one of those things where if you dose it, it will stay at the level it needs to be in your tank. If you neglect it, it will, of course, diminish as it's being utilized by the corals and absorb. Even fish use it. So coralline algae uses it. I mean, it's being used up, so it has to be replaced on a regular basis. I also want to recommend that you stay on top of that test. Don't ignore that test. We're waiting for the stingray to tolerate the train.
Hey. She's good.
All right. So if your calcium gets too high on the tank, some people say, what do I do now? Do I just change a lot of water? You could. You could change a big batch of salt water. And when you do that, you want to measure the new salt water and see if the calcium is the right level. Because if you're putting it in at a higher level with every water change, you'll never bring it down. But if it gets too high, stop dosing it for a few days and let it just diminish. It might take a week. But if you test every single day, you'll find out when it finally hits the right level, and then you resume your normal dose. The next one is going to be magnesium. And magnesium is a very important one that I feel Montipora love. They just absorb it. That's where they get their beautiful colors. And if you don't dose magnesium, they get really pale. And especially the Montipora capricornus, which is the beautiful whirling corals. Those are so popular, and they come in so many colors. And it's a shame when they're really gray or just faded like a pastel.
Right.
They're supposed to be rich in color. And so I actually recommend a higher amount of magnesium than is in the ocean. The ocean measures somewhere around 1280 ppm, and I like to shoot for 1400 and just keep it there. So if you're at 1350 to 1400, that would be really good. If you got crazy high, stop dosing it until it comes back down, or do your water changes again to get it back where it belongs.
You know, when my magnesium's low, I feel pretty shitty too.
Yeah.
Get really pale. So.
And then you get it in an IV.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of like corals. Color will tell you a lot if something's, just not looking as bright as it could be. And a lot of these things can be prevented by just doing the tests regularly,
Exactly.
not looking for problems after there's a problem.
Which is why you said water tests
save lives.
When she said that, I was like, I love that. That should be a catchphrase. Phosphate and nitrate is another one that a lot of us talk about. And 15 years ago, we all wanted 0-0. That was the goal. We couldn't do it. We were shooting for the lowest numbers, and there was very few hobbyists that could do it, and their tanks looked amazing, and we thought, oh, the holy grail is 0 nitrate, 0 phosphate. Fast forward 15 years, and people are begging for nitrate and phosphate because they don't have enough because their tanks start at 0 and stay 0 so long, the livestock can't tolerate it. It's too low. So different companies like Brightwell literally sell nitrate in a bottle and phosphate in a bottle. I don't need it, but I'm selling it because you guys need it. And if I didn't have it in my shop, it would be cheating you out of something you need. So I sell Neo Nitro and I sell Neo Phos as additives that you can add to your tank, and as you test regularly, you can avoid overdosing. Some people early on were dosing nitrate, and the nitrate would come up a little bit and up a little bit, and then suddenly shot way up, and then their corals start dying, and it was because it went from like 0 to 40 in a week. So we want to make sure we're coming up just a little bit, and somewhere shoot around 3 to 5 ppm is fine. My tank tends to be much, much higher than that, and like I said, my Reef lives in spite of me. But I did bring it down 2 months ago with monster water changes. And when I say monster, I changed something, I believe I have this correct, around 550 gallons in a week's time. It was a monster amount of water. It was a lot of effort. But it brought the nitrates all the way down to 30, and they stayed 30 ever since. So my thought is, one of the things we're going to be doing next week, which Caitlin has kindly agreed to do, is to help me actually siphon the sand bed and move corals out of the way and work our way around the entire tank and just clean the sand that we can reach that is turning 7 years old.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be so satisfying.
The tank will be so clean in time for the 7-year anniversary.
What?
Which is super exciting to me. I love benchmarks, and every year I do an anniversary video showing the tank, and this year I will be doing the 7-year anniversary on the 10th of November, and that will be showing all the gear that's currently being used on this aquarium, close-ups of everything. But in the meantime, for a second, I have a clip to show you all. Let's see. Don't give you the wrong thing. I think it's this one.
Let's hope.
There we go. And we'll close this for a second. So sorry, I didn't realize we had no audio for you.
Oh my goodness.
So here we are. I did this once before and it took like 20 minutes to do this. It was so bad.
Oops.
So I wanted to mention before, when you saw the logo, I did black and white for Halloween instead of the normal colorful logo. I thought that was kind of fun. And I shot about 10 minutes of video for you guys here of how the tanks look right now, but there will be a much more in-depth video for the anniversary video. So you spent, I'd say, half a day cleaning this cube to make it so beautiful and sparkly in preparation for what? What was the motivating factor besides wanting to get stung by anemones?
Well, Mark, you are definitely a coral person, and I'm a fish person. So I set that tank up so we could have some new Randall's gobies that will be here just in time for your anniversary, which is really exciting. They're one of my favorite fish. Very, very, very animated and interactive, which I love that. Like a fish that's engaging and fun to watch. It really just makes my day. And they will have a bonded pistol shrimp with them. So it's a mated pair with a bonded shrimp. And then we're getting, I think, 5 bang guys.
Yes.
Because they can, there's very few fish that you can put in an anemone cube like that. With all those tentacles, you need something that can tolerate them. And the gobies can stay on the sand bed, and the cardinals can tolerate the nemasticides from the anemones. So then we're also getting a trio of Helfricke firefish.
And they're going in the big tank.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Really, firefish are great. They're pretty peaceful and hardy. They're just really nice. But make sure you have a screen on top of the tank. We're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because we don't want any jumpers. So that's the exciting new fish we're adding in. And when was the last time you actually added a fish?
It's been a while. The copper band might have been the last one, or the cleaner wrasse possibly. Cleaner wrasse. And the cleaner wrasse I didn't think would live. I got that fish, and I told everyone I got this new fish, but they are notoriously bad at staying alive. And everyone said, I have one, it's happy. I was so surprised. It was like 15 people all replied on the live stream. I have one. I can't believe I was that lucky. But there it is right there.
Well, there she goes.
Yeah. So we got the fish from Live Aquaria, from Diver's Den.
Yes, we did.
And the reason we picked Diver's Den is because they quarantined their fish in advance. They had it in stock. And so we actually asked for when it was going to be delivered. And originally they said, well, we're going to take it out of quarantine on this day, which to me sounded like they'd ship it on Thursday for a Friday arrival, and that is terrifying to me. See, I keep doing scary things for Halloween. I don't like the idea of possibly not getting your shipment on Friday, and then the box waits for the whole weekend, and then on Monday you open the box to death.
Right.
And we spend all this money. We are trying to bring in living, happy animals, and I wanted them to be safe. So I said, I want you to hold on to them a few days, box it up on Monday, and ship it for a Tuesday arrival, which landed on November 10th, which was perfect. So they literally will arrive that day. And when they do, we are going to acclimate them. They're going to go through safety stop, and then they're going to go into a peacemaker. They're going to go into 2 peacemakers.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, because I'm making my first peacemaker. Mark has been teaching me some of his acrylic magic, so that should be interesting. And the good part is it doesn't have to be aesthetically perfect because it's going to be ours, so we'll see how I do. But that's exciting. So, and who's going to go on those? The Helfrickes, right?
Actually, I think what's going to happen, well, we'll just have to see. But what I like was the idea that we could make a smaller peacemaker for the cube, and I'll design it for the smaller size tank, because the one I make is made for larger tanks. And that way I'll have a new one to add to the shop that costs a little bit less that fits smaller aquariums, hopefully, for some people anyway. And we can have something cute that goes in there for any time we want to get something new for that tank. It can go into a little tiny peacemaker, and it will be the one you made, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Someone asked, but said he's joking. Are these real corals? Everything looks crazy fake under blue light, but they look so good this way. So, but that's not how the tank looks like all day long, trust me.
And yes, they're real. I've been stung by some of the stuff in there, but all my fault. Gloves save skin. I don't know.
Okay, so the gloves would have saved your hands, but all your wrists and forearms all the way up, you would have had to wear a long sleeve shirt or a glove that goes up to the shoulder. It just was, that was a very difficult task to work in that tank without many tentacles, and that's why I don't do it.
Oh, another horror story. So yesterday, after the whole tarantula episode, Mark's at the post office, and I look over at the anemone cube, and there is a beautiful rose tip anemone just getting sucked into the power head. And I, again, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to get stung, because immediately I stick my hand in there, save him, and relocated him. He's actually doing well. But that, I mean, it's really sad. I really get attached to these,
animals.
Animals. So it was worth the stings. But that's a scary moment to see that.
And that powerhead has a protective anemone guard on there, and so it didn't get destroyed. It didn't get chopped up into a million pieces, which was good. All right, let's see where we're doing on this video. I don't know where we are on the timeline. Oh, we still got a few more minutes. All righty, let me look at some of these questions in the meantime. Look at all these chats. Caitlin's going to take a break for a second. Just hit your mute button. There you go. And I will entertain the crowd and drink my coffee here. I was waiting all week to show you guys this angler fit mask, but I didn't want to reveal it until the show. Let's see. I'm looking at the questions right now. Alex asks, have you ever had mollies in your tank? I'm currently acclimating mollies to salt water. No, I've never done that. I've always heard of it. I've seen a few people do it. I know I visited some reef keepers and said, what kind of fish is that? Because it's freshwater, I wouldn't know it. But it can be done. Let's see. Oh, you know what I was going to do for today? I forgot to tell you. Instead of doing at Mila's Reef, which we always do, I was going to do at Anglerfish. I thought that would be fun for Halloween, but it's a little late to ask you to do it differently. But if you want to do at Anglerfish and at Shark, you can actually point your questions at either one of us. Let's see. Back to the naked Travis.
Yeah.
Andrea says the best stories involve nudity. Trent says, I made it to the live and I thought I was on the wrong channel for a second. Why is this tank so dark and these people are dressed in costume? Reef Tank Project says, ever heard of copepods feeding on corals? I dosed 2 packs of copepods yesterday and now my chalice is all puffy. I read somewhere the pods can eat corals. Well, I don't really think that they're eating your corals. I think they're snacking on some of the mucus and they're also looking for a place to call home. And so your coral may react to this change of presence because the biodiversity has altered in the aquarium temporarily. But it won't be like that all the time. So I would just keep an eye on it for now. You could always take a turkey baster to it and blow it off with that to kind of make sure it's clean of anything. And if worse comes to worse, you could take the coral and you could dip it. That's the end of the video. We'll come back to our camera now. There's Shark Girl. Look at her smiling.
Chomp chomp.
I told him to do at Anglerfish and at Sharky. The button's on the top. Right on the top. See a green light? I just looked under your shark suit.
This is my first live stream.
Someone said, those candles are adding CO2 to the tank. You're right. And you know what? They're adding heat. I had to turn on the air conditioner, and it's cold out because I was like, it's getting so hot in here from all these candles. And they're all real. You didn't like this one.
No, that one died.
Oh. But no, it's kind of fun to have candlelight.
Yeah, we won't be doing it long term.
Ooh, there's a story. Okay, I found another story to tell you guys. Another scary story. There was a guy who had a reef tank, and in that tank, he had a PVC structure that held up all the rockwork. Now, this is a big tank, like 400, 450 gallons. And so he had these big, long PVC pipes, and he had this huge worm that he caught at night with a flashlight that was eating coral. Not just like snacking on a little bit. I mean, this thing was devouring a colony of zoanthids, which are palytoxin. And then it would eat another whole thing, and he's like, oh my god, I get rid of this worm. So he pulled out all the rock out of his tank, and he removed the PVC structure, and he thought he just removed this worm. He could not, because the worm was that long
My gosh.
that he cut the pipe in sections to get at this worm. He ended up cutting the worm while he was trying to, break it up. And then he laid it down on the ground next to his car, and it was 13 and a half feet long. That's a python.
Wow. Yeah, no, I once was breaking down a tank and I found a giant worm, and I thought it was so neat. I set up a tank and kept it by itself. He was so cool.
Mm-hmm. What'd you feed him?
Just like frozen food and just
really.
Yeah, he was neat.
How long did you keep it?
Gosh, probably about a year until I moved.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you gave it to the neighbor?
Yes. He said,
slid it under the door.
Here's a gift. I have a video of it, but I don't think I can get it on there.
No. Let's see. Reef and Dive says you could do a dinoflagellates horror story. Let's see. I'm looking for another question. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing a view of the tank. It was all freehand, so it wasn't like the stationary stuff I usually shoot for you. But I wanted to walk around and show you everything. What? So I think Okay, here we go. So last month, road workers were out in front of my house cleaning out the sewer with some type of chemical steam. I walked into the basement where my tank is, and the basement was filled with this steam, and it got into my tank, but everything was fine.
Oh my gosh.
But I did a water change anyway, and that was very smart.
Yes.
Man, can you imagine that? Okay, I got another horror story. Some of these I've repeated, but we're putting them all together in one show. I liked it better when the anemone cube was dark. There we go. It keeps restarting itself. Let's see what happens here. All right, so this one here was an excess ammonia story. And there was a lady in our club that would do her water changes. She did her water testing, but her tank was doing worse and worse and worse. So she kept changing the water. And as she changed it, the tank would decline, which is not what you expect from water change.
Right.
You think it would get better. And so finally she broke out a test kit, and she measured the tank, and the ammonia was sky high.
Oh my gosh.
And she thought, how is this possible? So she tested her RODI water, and it was sky high. What was happening was there was a new subdivision being built near her neighborhood.
Wow.
And when they cleaned the pipes to make them ready for human consumption, they pour pure ammonia through those pipes. That water got into her neighborhood, went through her RODI system, because it can't be stopped.
Right.
And it was so high, so concentrated,
So that's
that
why
she was killing her tank. And she lost everything. It was that kind of
Wow.
horror story. And it was all because the city was working in the area.
See, and that's why you can't, I mean, yes, we have our ODI water. We assume it's perfect and ready for the tank, but it pays to really just even check that. Like, don't make assumptions about your water.
Right. And because this happened to her not once, but 2 times, like 6 months later, again, the same scenario.
Wow.
Every time she made water from that day forward, she tested it for ammonia.
Yep.
What a pain in the butt to have to check for ammonia every time you make some water. Every time.
Water tests save lives.
Yep, that's exactly right. And then there was another weird water story. This one was a Dallas business in a home. They had all these racks of tanks. They were filled up with fish and corals and inverts. And the city said, we have to replace your meter, which is right at the curb. And so they went in there and they cut the pipes and they put in the new meter and then they hooked it up and said, you're good to go. And they left. And everyone, and she had like 30 cleaner shrimp, they all died. It was copper poisoning.
Oh, no.
Because they'd been sweating the brand new copper, and it was such a high toxicity, the RODI couldn't stop it because it was so much more than it would normally get, that little tiny bit. So, see, horror stories, y'all. Let's see. Here's a super chat. Thank you very much, Paul, for that. I appreciate that. He says, I need advice. I have a bubble tip anemone times 5 in a 30-gallon with a Caribbean anemone. War broke out in the BTA, so I moved to the Reef. They don't look good. It's a bland color. Help. Well, I don't like mixing anemones in the same tank. That's the #1 rule that I highly urge you to avoid. So having bubble tips and the Caribbean is a factor that I think you should remove the Caribbean. I would just have only bubble tips. I would put the Caribbean in its own tank, or if you love the Caribbean, I would remove the bubble tips. But I think the 2 types in the same body of water, especially in a tank that's only 30 gallons.
That's small for that.
It's a chemical warfare that you don't even see. It's an invisible one. When you were working that tank so hard,
I felt like I was sticking my hand into
acid.
an electric. It was very uncomfortable, and yeah. So you don't necessarily see what they're giving off, but
Yeah, she said, my arms are stinging. And I thought, well, yeah, you've been hugging these anemones. It makes sense. But then when I reached in, I hadn't touched the tank, and I just put my arms in, it felt like I put my hands in muriatic acid. The entire water. And I thought, wow, these clowns don't care. And then I kept thinking, that water's going to get into my 400 gallon at some point.
So we did a water change really quick.
Actually, yeah. We pulled out a bunch of water to lower the amount, and then we restarted the pumps and let the water flow. And there was the only reaction out of all the tank was the sea bay anemone kind of shriveled up. Kind of interesting that it noticed.
Yeah.
But all the rest of the fish and the corals continued to swim around and act normal. So that would be my advice. Now, Paul, the other thing you can do, giant water change, and run some carbon in a reactor. Even if you have to hang the reactor inside of your tank for a few days and just look at it, but having the water go through the carbon and back into the tank would be your best bet. And you can actually use like half a cup of carbon, which is quite a bit more than like a filter pad might be that's like on a hang back filter. Those are really thin and they have like a tablespoon. So using a half a cup, which is generally just recommended for 50 gallons, and you're at 30. It's a little bit high, but that would be a good way to kind of lower the toxicity, and hopefully your stuff will kind of turn around and feel better. looking for another question. Ooh, someone's starting a good story.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, we want to hear the rest.
Yeah.
He said, in a dark, stormy night in an isolated town, one 40-gallon tank stood. The inhabitants included a gold assessor and a black clownfish. The tank carrier out of the hand to rearrange the rope. And that's it. That's all we got.
In the rock, what happens after
What
that?
happens?
I'm assuming the rock?
Yeah, maybe it was the rock. Yeah.
Rearrange the rock. But we need to know the rest, Charlie, if you're still there.
Come on, Charlie. Don't leave us
Oh,
hanging.
there he is!
Oh, good. There's more. It was rock.
Rock.
Worked on the thing, struck the clownfish. Oh no, the clownfish was the devil. He was not Solaris.
Yeah.
He was a little brat, I swear. But he was in a massive fight with the algae magnet. It was hilarious. Charlie! And he switched to another topic. All right, Charlie. We will hopefully get more information
It's
later.
a cliffhanger.
It is. Season 2 resumes next week.
Oh, man.
Let's see if we have any questions here. Jared says, speaking of testing, have you looked into the Lamont Spin Touch or the API Aqua Spin? They test 8 major parameters via photometers in 2 or 3 minutes. I've heard of them. I haven't seen one in person yet. Let's see. The Raccoon Story. The spiritual counselor continues. I had to scare the raccoon out with a broom, and it got scared and peed all over the tank.
Oh, no.
It then proceeded to hiss at me, jump on the curtains, and out the door. Well, at least it went out. The time I had a snake in this house,
Wait a second.
it was so
You
scary.
have snakes in here?
There was a snake. One time,
I'm moving.
oh, I wanted to move. I walked out of my bedroom, and when you come out the doorway, it's a hallway, and right across from my doorway is a door for the air conditioner. And there's a shelf, and the snake was on the shelf looking at me. It was only about this long.
Oh.
It was a little tiny snake. But it was looking at me, and it was a snake, which I call a nope rope. I don't want any nope ropes in this house.
Danger noodles!
They can live outside all they want, but I don't want it in my house. So I thought I'd get a dustpan and the brush and just put it in the dustpan and take it outside and set it free.
How'd that work out?
Oh my God, that thing started wriggling, and it just came flying out of the dustpan, and it hit the floor. And then I screamed like a little girl.
Okay.
On my tippy toes, freaking out that there was a snake loose in the house. So I took the dustpan and I kept flicking it toward the door. And I don't know if it survived, but I got the door open, and I got it out, and I closed the door, and I lived to tell the tale.
But did the snake live to tell the
I'm sure it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all that really
It just
matters.
it wanted some cardio.
Oh.
Wow.
See, the raccoon, I'd probably want to, like, trap and pet. I'm so bad.
You just want to check its eye makeup.
You're like, oh, you look so great.
Well, the nice thing about raccoons is they wash their hands.
They're so clean.
They're so clean.
And they're so cute. I really enjoy watching, like, any little critter that comes by the house. So
You do love all the animals. Even the spider. Oh, by the way, the spider that went in the kitchen cabinet, Caitlin did take a picture, which we can share on the community tab here on YouTube.
Yep.
In a spot filled with webs. It was completely at home.
oh my gosh, she did not want to come out. She's like, oh no, I like it here in this little crevice under your cabinets.
Can you imagine if we'd left her there and she just came out for whatever she needed to eat from time to time and went back in? That was her new home.
Oh my god.
You just walk into the kitchen to get
I'd
a bottle
be
of water,
I'd
and
be
there's
afraid.
this tarantula.
I'd be afraid to, like, squish her.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Or have Jack bite her. Or
or
it bite Jack. I don't
or yeah, you don't want your dog to get sick by eating your tarantula.
Yeah.
So
Charlie says, what is your favorite coral? Not necessarily in your tank. My favorite for a long time has been the sun coral.
ooh, those are nice.
They're so pretty. They move.
Right.
And by the way, I talked to you on a previous stream, and I mentioned to you that women like things that move, and you kind of rolled your eyes like, oh, sexist comment.
Well,
I had so many women say yes. They agreed with me.
All right, well,
So anyway, sun corals are gorgeous. They come in a couple of colors.
you don't like things that move?
I love things that don't move.
Okay.
I have a whole tank full of SPS corals, and there's like almost no activity whatsoever.
I love them, but for different reasons.
But if you were setting up your own tank,
Oh,
which at some point you will, what would you put in it?
well,
Star polyps.
Well, no. I plan to do a nice little cold water cube at some point. And there can be a sun coral in there.
They might be able to tolerate it. I'm not sure.
Well, no. Wait. Rock anemones.
And strawberry. The little strawberry anemones.
Oh,
the ones that come from Catalina Island in California. They're lush. It looks like sun corals, really, but they're strawberry colored. They're beautiful. They're just this hot pink. I guess that's not strawberry. That's red. But no, you can fill the tank with that. You can get the beautiful snails that have the colors on their stripes. And I think doing a cold water tank would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we can set one up, and then we're debating cold water tank, octopus tank.
Yeah.
Cold water tank, octopus tank. And then, of course, you love fish, and so then you start thinking about gorgeous fish like the Pomacanthus, and I don't know, you probably have a whole list of fish I can't afford.
But no, I think it would be neat to do something a little bit different than just another reef cube. I am a big fan of biotopes and keeping things, in the same general area that they're found in naturally.
Yeah.
I think that's... I think that might be different from what we have.
It definitely would.
Yeah,
and it might use less electricity.
Yeah, less lighting, but
because
you have
less light, but you have a chiller.
So
it's a chill. You'll never need a heater.
We just need to. How to get more electricity into the house? Let's
just bring in another meter. Charlie asks, I know this is off topic, but would I be able to keep a cleaner wrasse in a 40-gallon with a 6-line wrasse? Firefish, clownfish, gold assessor, and a clown goby. Yeah, but you're kind of maxing out what the tank can hold fish-wise, sort of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all small fish. The clown's kind of the biggest one, I think. Maybe the gold assessor.
And the clown is probably the only one that's going to have an attitude problem.
Right, but cleaner wrasses seem to be welcomed by everyone because the fish get to get cleaned. Right. So you might be able to do that, but I wouldn't keep pushing for more and more fish on that tank. I think you're going to kind of max out soon.
Clown goby. Oh my god, I love a good clown goby.
So
I love gobies.
They are cute.
Yeah, and those little, gosh, they're like little gumdrops. They're so cute.
They really are. Let's see. Adam says, any thoughts on CO2 scrubbers? I haven't had a need for one, and I know they're becoming a little bit more popular these days. Again, the whole reason for a CO2 scrubber is because the people and the pets in the house are breathing. They're releasing CO2 near the tank, and the pH drops. So by scrubbing the CO2 out of the water, it helps raise the pH in the tank, which is beneficial to the livestock. So if you had a scrubber, you're going to have to... A lot of people who like to hook it up to the protein skimmer. Be arrested a video showing how to hook it up where you're recirculating the air through the protein skimmer and doing that. And you've got to replace the CO2 scrubbing media. So that doesn't last forever. So that's something to keep in mind. But I haven't had a need. My tank tends to stay somewhere around 7.8 to 8.0. No, I'm sorry. Is that right? 8.0 to 8.2. Sounds about right. Maybe a little bit lower in the winter because I love keeping the doors closed. Fresh air. No. Oh. I know, you love fresh air. I'm like, go outside.
Walk your dog.
Look, Shark. How did Jack get her name?
How did Jack get her name? Well, I wanted to adopt a dog. This was a few years ago. I was living in Chicago. I wanted to get a boy dog, and I had the collar made, I had the tag made. I went to the shelter, and I went over to, this little enclosure, and everyone's looking at the dogs, and she's lying in the back. She gets up and just, comes up to the glass and comes up to me, and I said, that one's mine. And I said, I already have, and I'm like, she doesn't care. So her name is Jack. I call her, Jackie or Jack-o'-lantern or, Jack the Sniffer, which is very appropriate for Halloween. And, yeah, everyone's always confused. They're like, is she a boy? I'm like, nope.
And her full name is?
Her full name is Jack Nicholson. So actually, do we have the collar?
It might be hanging on the... Oh, no, it's on your keys.
It is on my keys.
By the front door. We'll see if you guys can see it in the dark. Maybe I'll hold it up in front of this light or something. The camera's way up there.
Oh my goodness. So we had this 3D printed.
It's pitch dark. Doesn't work. All right, come over here.
Okay.
Let me try in front of the light over here. See if this maybe works.
No.
It's too bright. Anyway, oh wait, you can see it. It's Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
Yeah.
That's what hangs on her collar. So yeah, the name was named before the dog was acquired.
Right.
So that's
and
why
I stuck
she's got
with
that
it.
name.
Oh, here she is. Hey,
She
Jack.
heard us talking about her.
Yeah. She's tolerating her stingray costume very well, I have to say.
XJet says, break out the Crown Royal already. Thanks for the stream, buddy. Fragging SPS. I'm out of Crown, guys. It's unbelievable. Anglerfish, that's me! Do you know anyone who has had success with any of the commercially available jellyfish tanks?
Ooh.
Actually, the guy that goes by the name LA Fish Guy runs a YouTube channel, and he came up with one of the first jellyfish aquariums that you could buy as a hobbyist and has the patent for it. So, and he was selling his jelly aquariums at MACNAs and shows like that. And there's so many brands on the market now, little tiny desktop ones.
Why do I feel like Matt Peterson did that?
He might have at least promoted one.
No,
and
I feel like he had one at home.
And Albert Thiel had one for a while. There's a lot of people that did it. For me, a jellyfish tank is like a lava lamp, and it's really cool to look at for about 5 seconds, and then I'm kind of over it. I don't have the desire to keep them tumbling. But when I go to public aquariums and they have the huge tank with lots of them, I do really enjoy seeing them for about 30 seconds. And then I move on to the next spot. I look for sharks. Let's see. Reef and Dive is following up with a question from me before about the bug, the copepods. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of different kinds of copepods. The ones that we tend to buy are opaque. They're round. They have 2 whiskers coming off of them. But there are some other ones like the tiger pods from Reef Nutrition. And, you know, whatever you poured in could have affected that. I mean, yeah, it's possible. Maybe you could pour it into the rockwork next time instead of in an area where it's going to land directly on said coral that you're worried about.
Oh my gosh, Russell.
Is that this one here?
Yeah.
What? Okay, horror story. Russell said, I tried to set up a reef last year before I knew what I was doing, using tap water and table salt.
Oh.
It was a terrible outcome, the worst. Everything died because I did it wrong. Yeah, this anglerfish agrees with you.
Yep, we're agreeable sea creatures.
I mean, we use salt for cooking, yeah. But I've never, a matter of fact, the other day my back's hurting. Caitlin says, why don't you take a bath with Epsom salt? I said, there is none. And she says, oh, we should get some. I said, well, I have a lot of Aquavitra. That would be one expensive bath.
Oh, man. Yeah, if I like to pick up a book. That's how I started. Yeah. But nowadays, there's so much information on the internet. Just make sure you're getting the right, double check your research, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's solid advice.
Yeah, definitely. Look at this. Here's one that was written to Stingray.
Bark, bark. Hey, Jack. Stingray's sleeping.
Even Stingray got some conversation.
Aww.
That was nice. Oh, no. Brian says, happy Halloween. Love your angler mask. My ick came back heavy, so I'm in the process of removing all my fish to finally eradicate. I lost 2 fish already. Oh. 3 questions. Uh-oh. How long do you keep... ... I have to see what the rest of his questions are.
Didn't we talked about this?
We actually have an ick video that you could watch.
Yeah, because you wait until it completely cycles out.
Yeah, and we talked about how long it takes. Here we go. So here's the continuation. Let me scroll down, then we'll come back up to this one here. Mm-hmm. So he said, how long do you keep your tank empty? Can you use PVC in the hospital tank for them to hide and play in? I have a Labrador wrasse and a yellow chorus wrasse who sleep probably in the sand. Let's see if there's more. Scrolling. There's no more. All right. No, that's it. All right, so your question to get rid of the sick, and I'm not a fish disease person. I'm pretty sure you're not a fish disease person. Humble.fish has a great website. Mm-hmm. Humble.fish, and just hit enter on your keyboard. There's no .com, there's no .net, no .tv. Just humble, period, fish, enter on your keyboard. And he talks about ick and what to do. And basically, you do have to pull your fish out. You do want to put them into a quarantine, well, really into a hospital tank. And my preference, may not be Humble's preference, is to lower the salinity to 1.009 and keep it there for 6 weeks. Your reef will be fishless for something like 72 days or longer, or 76 days, or some really long period. And that's why I'm saying go to that website. And by keeping all the fish out of your tank, that means you need to feed the corals. You can't neglect the tank now, because normally you're feeding the fish poop on the corals get a meal. When there's no fish, your corals will get really pale because they're starving. So you're going to want to put food in there 2-3 times a week, and you're going to take care of that fish tank that the fish are in really closely, because now they're in a smaller body of water, not as good filtration. You want to change water frequently. I even recommend daily on that tank, 10%. So if it's 10 gallon and you change 1 gallon every day, you're changing 10% daily. That's perfect to keep ammonia under control. You have to keep that 0.009 salinity, 1.009, straight for that 21 days. And if it goes up even slightly one day, you have to bring it down to 1.009 and restart the clock and go for another 21 days. And that way the fish are ick free. And then you very slowly over 2 weeks bring the salinity all the way back up to normal, and then they go back in your tank. You see, that's a huge long duration. It's super frustrating, and it kind of having to live through that ordeal, that all that extra effort, will really push you toward doing quarantine tanks in the future.
Yeah.
To avoid letting it get into your tank again.
The important part, though, is there's no like quick fix for that. I know a lot of people like, what can I put in my tank that'll just make this all go away? And there's really just
not.
Yeah.
There's stuff sold, doesn't work. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There was someone that did an article about it. Stephen Pro did an article in Reef Keeping many years ago, and he set up a test tank, and he put like zinnia in both tanks, and Pacillipore in Pacillipore, and then he put in nothing in one tank, and he put in Ruby Rick ick remover or something like that, and he had another tank, and he showed what lived and what died based on the chemicals added to the tank. So he basically, at the end of the article, if you just go down to in conclusion, he said nothing works. You just don't recommend any of these products that are on the market, unfortunately. But there's always someone that comes out with something and they say, I swear this will work.
No.
So, these are tried and true. I mean, ick has been around forever. Freshwater and saltwater hobbyists have had to deal with it. So trying to come up with a quick fix, that's just a newbie thing to do. I want an easy fix. A lot of stuff that's a problem takes time to fix.
Yes.
And it's very frustrating, and I'm sorry you're having to deal with it. Reef Tank Project says, could you be able to keep an angelfish at home? What conditions do you think?
Anglerfish.
Oh, an anglerfish. Thanks for catching that. That would be a species-only tank, and yes, people do get these little frogfish. They get these little anglerfish, not like this one.
Yeah, you're not.
This is like the deep water you'll never see.
If you want one of these, you can't keep one.
Right.
I get the only one.
Just watch. Just watch Finding Nemo, and you can check out this huge, scary anglerfish that goes after them. I got some news for you I want to share with you. We came across this great story this week. I can't remember who shared it. I think it was a Canadian website about the Great Barrier Reef's discovery.
Oh my gosh!
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So they found a freestanding kind of reef column in the Great Barrier Reef that is taller than
the Eiffel Building
and the Eiffel Tower. It's something like, God, what was it, like 6,000?
Okay, so it was all in meters, and I'm not good at metric, as you know. But I can tell you this. I was super frustrated when I started the conversion to figure out...
It was like a mile to even get there. That's how low. How did they even find it?
No, it's not that... Well, they used a robot, and they sent it down there. They were mapping out the ocean floor, and they discovered this unbelievable hidden reef no one's ever known about. It's a brand new discovery. It discovered October 20th, I think. I mean, it's brand new.
Right. The best part about this story that made me super happy when I found out is the reef is super healthy.
Yeah.
There's no bleaching. There's no, decay or anything.
It was packed with fish.
Yep.
They said it was the most thriving reef. They were shocked to find this thing. And so, like I said, I was converting the map, and I was telling Caitlin, when we go diving, average diving is about 60 feet deep, 120 for a little bit, like a few minutes. And anything beyond that, you have to use a rebreather. You go down very deep, a few hundred feet for like the peppermint angelfish or something.
Right.
This was deeper. You couldn't even get to the top of the reef as a recreational diver. Even advanced open water, you'd have maybe 2 minutes to get to the top, and you wouldn't get to see anything beneath it. So it's literally something you have to visit, rebreather, and even then, it was like 600 feet deep. It wasn't like 300. It was deep, more than any diver I know goes.
Right. And
I was thinking submarine, which sucks, because I want to go down there and I want to just hang out in one spot. I don't want to look through a window of a submarine. So, I mean, I can look at a window on my television to watch National Geographic. So it's exciting that it exists. we believe the reason it exists is because nobody can get to it.
Yeah, when
So it's
I
not
found
getting
out
ruined by
how
humans.
Yep. When I found out how healthy it is, I'm like, well, that's because no one can touch it.
Yeah. So that's really new, exciting news. Another exciting thing that happened, the new Coral magazine is here. This is about worms.
Oh, and bubble tip anemones.
And
My nemesis.
There's probably a whole section about what Caitlin shouldn't have done in here. We'll find out. So this is the brand new issue, and I got mine on the same day that the issues came in for the shop. So I've got 6 copies in the shop if you want to buy a copy and add it to your order. I'll be happy to drop it in the box. And then one more thing came in the mail today that I've been sitting on for 2 days, which no one would ever do. But Caitlin says, you're going to do an unboxing, aren't you? So this is a box that I got that is very benign looking, but inside it is something very dark that you can't see. So I will just peel this open. Let's see if I can get some light. Where's that light at? There it is. So there, let's see if I can drop this and just clunk.
You need help there?
I'm just trying to be careful so I don't drop it. That one. This is the new iPhone 12. It arrived. So I'm very excited. Every year I get a brand new iPhone. So this is the newest one for me. Try and get on that light. So pretty. Ooh. Let's see if I can not drop it. The lid. Here is the new phone.
Wow. So shiny.
So shiny. And it's blue this time. Last time I got the greenish hue. This one is the blue hue. Oh, look, they only put a cover on the front. So it just looks like an iPhone. You know, it's got the 3 cameras on the back. I got to learn all the new features, but I'm very excited to get my brand new phone. The only other thing in the package is a charging cable, but no charging brick. And so a lot of people were making fun of that on the internet, saying, hey, Apple's selling you a phone with no charging brick. And then Samsung released news. They're releasing their next phone with no charging brick. So now Android and Apple are doing the same, because everyone has their own charging bricks anyway. We've got a drawer full because we've all had many phones. So whatever. So that I will be setting that up. And then my iPhone 11 goes back to Apple because I only keep my phones for 1 year and I always swap out with a new one. So that has been my plan for several years. I love always having the newest one. You have a relatively new one yourself.
Yeah.
I think yours is the iPhone SE that came out about 6 months ago. And that has been used for many videos of
Jack.
Stingray.
Of the dog.
Yeah. And the Skippies.
Yes, the skippies, which is what we like, or I like to call the squirrels in the backyard.
Yeah. She calls them Skippy because they skip.
And like the peanut butter.
All right, let's see if we can find another question. Oh, by the way, the question that asked, I think it was Brian that was asking about ick, and he was saying, could you put PVC in that tank? Yes.
Right.
You can't. They're not going to play with it. You said, can they swim in it and play? They're not going to play. But they may sleep in it it's a good thing to have some kind of structure in the hospital tank so the fish aren't feeling stressed.
Exactly. I mean, stress is something that really kind of exacerbates
The sickness.
The sickness, yeah. So a lot of times, if ick is in a tank, if your fish is stressed out, that's what's going to kind of trigger it.
Yeah.
So yeah, keeping them comfortable, PVC is probably a great idea.
That's one method because you can clean it when you're done. What I've done in the past is I have some live rock I put in that tank, and they can hide in or around that live rock, and that rock will never go on my reef. That is literally the hospital tank rock. I just keep it wet forever. And if you have no fish for 12 weeks or longer, now the hospital tank is fallow, no ick could survive anyway. So it's not like it's going to live on the rock waiting for the next fish.
Right.
But if you keep buying fish on a regular basis, that's a whole other thing. Usually the best bet when you are dealing with trying to avoid ick is you buy your fish, you do the whole process of making sure it's healthy before it goes in your tank, before you get the next one. You know, if you are chasing fish after fish, that could be problematic. So be careful.
Yeah. I get excited and I want to add a bunch of fish at once, and it's kind of like, I guess, exhibiting some self-control there, which is hard.
It's important. Well, when you run out of money,
yeah,
that helps a lot.
That helps a lot.
Paul's back to us with the BTA Caribbean anemones question. He said they all look like they're not coming out much. Should I just wait? Yeah, I would wait. Sometimes you may have to pivot the rock. I discovered one of the anemones was inside my overflow box, inside the drain. There was like a sucking sound a week ago, and I removed it, and I dropped it in the frag tank, and it went under the rock. But after about 5 or 6 days, it came out. Now it opens each day. And there's clownfish in it, which is great for them. They got a perk. And so that rose was removed. And who knows if maybe the rose has been in that overflow drain being sucked against all that time, and maybe that's what caused my RTN event that affected the leather, that affected...
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, maybe.
Wow. Yeah, that could, I mean...
Because I never did find the source, so perhaps that was the cause all this time in getting that out of the pipe. Because my overflow box has teeth and a lid, so that it gets sucked through or works its way through is kind of insane with a gap that's 1 inch tall and 3/8 of an inch wide.
Could have started out smaller.
It could have, and just gradually got closer and closer, and then got sucked into... Because it was half in that pipe. All right. Alex says, is polyfilter just as good as carbon? I've heard carbon can cause head and lateral line disease for tanks. So listen, all you have to know about carbon is that you rinse it before you use it. The dust from the carbon is what can affect some tanks in a small ecosystem. So if you take your carbon and you run it through a fish net to rinse it under tap water until it comes clear, it's ready to go in your tank. You won't have any problems at all. I've been running carbon in my tank for, I don't know, 20 years, and I've not run into that problem. And I have a lot of different tanks. And my tanks are not all perfect. They all have, 2 of them have issues of some kind, but the rest don't, which is the mystery. So I can't, and plus I haven't run carbon in forever, and it's still been the same look. There's no change. So I've not encountered where a yellow tang or a purple tang or even a Nasso suffered from running carbon. And I've run a lot of carbon in the past because I had a huge toadstool leather coral in my aquarium that I had to put carbon in every single week. And my tangs looked completely healthy. So did the hippos, the powder blue. What else did I have? I've had lots of different tangs over the years, but these right now are 5, 6 years old. The Nasso right there, Spock, I've had for since 2004. The purples from 2004. The yellows might be from 2013.
These fish are 16 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder, the eye problems and things like that, your tank is super healthy, and that could just be...
Just how it happens as you get older, maybe?
Right, yeah, like we have weird things happen when we get older. I mean...
I thought Spock might have nicked her eye once on a rock, and it just got a little bit worse and worse, very gradually, but now she has a really bad eye. And I've got one yellow tang that looks absolutely picture perfect, could be used on National Geographic. And I have one that has some weird stuff on its skin, but it's a smaller one, and a couple of the other fish chase it on a regular basis.
Hey,
and I think that's the problem. I think it's a little stressed. So if I were to remove the one that's not healthy and maybe put it in the frag tank with the hippo, maybe they'd get along just great, and she'd heal up completely. Oh, Charlie's doing season 2.
Oh, good.
On the dark morning of Halloween, as I stumbled toward the tank, everything looked in check. And when I peeped into the rockwork, ... Charlie! Here we go.
You have a stingray with you.
Expecting. There's a stingray.
You could take her head on.
Oh boy. Oh boy. You want some water? They just saw the shark go by. Let me see if I can adjust that one more time. Here we go. Where was the next part? Expecting to see a brittle sea star or urchin. What did I see? A worm. Not an ordinary worm, a massive white worm. He slithered on the rock and was the same size... ... What? As I do not really know, it was 13 inches by 4 inches. Massive. I do have many algae eating small white worms. They don't harm anything. All right. Thank you, Charlie, for season 2. That was great. Let's see. I'm going to... Your shark costume is awesome. When you're looking toward Jack, all you see is the teeth. There's this giant mouth. He's like, raw.
Stingray food.
So great. Glenn Smith, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, loving the new outfits. Please wear them to the next MACNA. Have a great day. He totally should.
That'd be great.
Does this light make me more attractive to you? All right, let's see. Anglerfish. We spent last weekend in Key West and drank Crown the whole time. Thought of you. Oh, that's great, Tammy. I'm glad you had a good time. I want to go back down to the Keys. I'd like to go diving down there. I'd like to get you certified for diving.
I've dove, but not.
No, we need to get you legal. We can't talk about that. We're on live camera. Let's see. Okay, Variant has a scary story. Got my new tank set up and cycled and put in 2 tiny clownfish, and within 5 minutes a horde of isopods inched it onto the smallest one and started sucking its blood. Wow. Vampire isopods. Yeah, that's terrible. And once you got those things in your tank, you have to, again, it's a fishless situation. You have to catch them all and remove them. And I knew one guy who actually went by the nickname, his real name was Brian. He went by the name Isopod Hunter on Reef Central.
Goodness.
And every night he put in like a bowl in the bottom of the tank filled with rotting flesh. He put a screen on top, and the isopods would swim in. And every morning he would take it out and remove those. And he did that for like 6 or 9 months until there was none left in the tank. It was a very slow process. Insane Reefer says, who's the nice guest? I haven't been on the stream for a long time.
Caitlin.
That's it. There you go.
My name is Caitlin, and this is Jack. Jack is the nicest guest.
She's being so quiet because she's eating hot dogs. Let's see. Kathy says, I'm cycling a new tank. Should I quarantine the fish? I'm adding from my old tank. I had a white spot outbreak in about 6 months ago. I added UV with no losses and further outbreaks. Well, this would be the perfect time to do just that. If you are starting a new tank and you were to quarantine your current fish, then you know they're going to go in completely clean into your pristine tank and you don't have to worry about it continuing. So that would be ideal. And it wouldn't be crazy hard because you just have to do that 6-week treatment. Well, maybe it's really more like 8 because you have to bring up salinity slowly. So it's a couple of months. But your main tank could be cycling, and by cycling, no protein skimmer, no lights, just let it idle. Just let it simmer. And it will just, and you can add bacteria, you could drop in a little bit of flake food, but you just keep it very, very simple while you're focusing on your fish and make sure they're super healthy. And then when you buy new fish, they're going to go into your new quarantine tank, and they go through the same process you just did with your current fish. So you can kind of practice with your fish. That's something you could consider. Let's see. Have you ever considered putting rock flower anemones in the bottom sand of your nem tank? No, Scott, I haven't considered that. Again, I don't like mixing other anemones in there. I would like to possibly put some rock anemones. Maybe I did. I bought some rock and flower anemones that I put in the frag system a while back, and that was really, really nice for a while. But they weren't getting enough food or something, and they just kind of vanished. You know, they just moved. I couldn't find them. I couldn't target feed them, and then they were gone. So I just have to say, you know, yeah, it is possible. I've had flower anemones in my main reef in the past, and I really enjoyed them. And once they found a spot, they never moved. But the few I had the other, you know, that one time from a few years ago, they were all these different colors. I think I had 6, and they just kind of vanished into the rockwork. I never saw them again. So that was a shame. Let's see. Let's just go a few more minutes, and then we'll wrap this up. Because I'm still ready for breakfast. I'm hungry. Let's see.
Hey, your light isn't working, is it?
No. Ah, it's not bringing in food. Let's see. I need to clean some dead coralline off the back wall of my tank. Will vinegar or citrus acid harm the acrylic if I soak it for 24 hours? Nope, both of those will work perfectly. And what you could do is you can actually lay the tank on its back and just have a thin layer of that acid solution for that 12, like overnight, and then take like a credit card or a plastic scraper or another piece of acrylic and chisel off all that coralline, and the acrylic won't scratch the other acrylic, which is nice. Or if you use a metal scraper or a razor blade, you potentially could damage the acrylic. So that's why I like credit cards. They're even softer. They won't leave any damage. Mm-hmm. And by laying the tank on its back, you're only having a little bit of acid, start trying to fill an entire tank with acid just to get the back wall wet. Oh, we're near the end. Ah, here's a good one. Scary story from Jason Langer.
Ha!
I once watched someone eat a peppermint fish cookie under duress, and now he's scarred for life. True story. I wonder who that could be. He's talking about me.
Oh no!
I didn't want to eat it. It was so pretty. So he makes the most beautiful reef fish. You have to follow him on Instagram. What's his? Is it the cookie? Can you find that for me?
Yep,
Really?
I sure can.
Thank you. No, he does, and I have some in my freezer I refuse to eat. And they're so pretty. There's a mandarin, there's a peppermint angelfish, there's clownfish, there's gobies, there's everything in there.
He is that fish cookie guy, all one word.
There you go. That fish cookie guy at Instagram. Follow him. Check out his work. He does beautiful work. He also does really nice fish paintings that are like these little plaques that fit on a big frame. Gorgeous. Does great work. So, and he made the algae turf scrubber I'm using from Foursquare Aquatics. Seacar says, have you ever owned a frogfish or a lionfish? I did buy a lionfish early on in my hobby. I bought this really pretty Volatin lionfish, and I put it in the tank, which was a 29-gallon, but it was a baby. And I went out of town, probably to visit family, and I asked someone that was staying at my house, can you just feed the fish? And, don't touch the lionfish, but, make sure it gets a little bite of food. And when I came home, there was no lionfish. And I said to him, where's my lionfish? He goes, I don't know, I can't find it. And I went over that entire tank, meticulously. I couldn't find any trace. I mean, I assume it died, and the cleanup crew got at it, but I couldn't find a quill. I could find nothing. It just evaporated. A horror story I could tell you about hunting my own peppermint shrimp. I did this. I hated it. It was horrible. That's what I'm sharing. So it was a very dark night, probably full moon. Went down to Galveston with a group. And then we went out on what's called the jetty, which is this pile of rocks that goes out for an entire mile. It's a mile long.
Yeah.
So you've got your buckets and your net and your flashlight, and you would walk all over these rocks that are slippery from the ocean and the waves, and it's dark and it's night, and you're using a little flashlight to see where you're going, and you get out to this point, and then you shine the flashlight down in the water, and you see all the little beady eyes looking at you. Very scary. And then you would scoop and grab a whole bunch and put them in your bucket. And then you have to carry buckets full of water and shrimp back 1 mile on the slippery rock while giant Texas-sized mosquitoes were attacking me. And I would put the bucket down and swat that one, and then pick up the bucket and take one step, put that bucket down, swat this for a mile. It was the most
that is a workout right there.
It was so horrible. I never did it again. And I brought home the ones that survived. I brought home like 200 of them or something. I put them in my tank, and I dropped it in the tank with the Aptasia, and I watched an Aptasia eat that peppermint shrimp, which is the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. So these were really dumb peppermint shrimp. It wasn't worth the effort. Ron says, can you keep a bunch of seabed anemones together like you do RBTAs? Yeah, I think you can. I think that you can have the same species, multiple anemones. When you go to a public aquarium and you see like their giant cold water tank, they have those giant, colorful, hot pink, hot green, just vivid, glowing anemones. They're all the exact same species, all in that tank with some giant starfish and maybe an octopus. But yeah, of the same family, you definitely can have as many as you want into a tank, as long as you're staying on top of your water quality. All right, that's it, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in for the live stream. Thank you so much for helping with the live stream today.
You're welcome.
And helping with the decor, which was great. You can't really see how beautiful this is. There is just, it says trick or treat here, and you saw some candles. There's candy here. There's going to be candy for tonight that hopefully no kids will come for, so I can have it all. And we definitely want to remind you, even though we talked about this earlier, test your water today because it saves lives.
Yes.
And we want to make sure you've checked everything. Also clean your protein skimmers collection cup and the neck, and make sure your dosing pumps are dosing. Make sure your dosing solutions are not empty, because you don't want to lose alkalinity or calcium or magnesium because you have an empty container and the dosing pump is sucking dry air. So let's make sure everything's working right and stay on top of your tanks. Clean your glass, clean the system top to bottom so it's pristine, so you're proud of it. And we will see you again. Well, at least I will see you again in a week. We'll see what happens. We'll see if you scared her off or not. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
I hope you have a great Halloween, and I'll catch you at Club Miller's Reef on Facebook later.